Hey everybody, welcome to Life Church, where faith is a journey, not a guilt trip. My name's Megan and I serve here in Guest Connect. Today you are going to hear from our lead pastor, Jonathan Herron, and a very special guest, his wife Amber. Listen, whether you're single, dating, engaged, married, divorced, or whatever, you do not want to miss this special message on Song of Solomon.
Hello, Lifer Nation. Jonathan Herron here from the Saginaw campus of Life Church. Thanks for tuning in because today we have an amazing special guest, the Queen Bee herself, my wife, Amber. So, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hey, everybody.
Today, you are going to want to take notes. We are going to give you relationship pro tips. So we've been journeying through Song of Solomon, and when you go to lifechurchmichigan.com/live, there is a discussion guide for you and your life group, or you and your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, that's going to drill down deeper into Song of Solomon, chapters 5 through 8. As we've already seen in the first week of our series, the Shulamite woman and King Solomon kind of dating, going through the courtship. Last week was the sex message because we talked about the wedding night. After the wedding comes the marriage, and all marriages can grow and mature in spite of problems. Newsflash, there's no perfect marriage. And we've been married 22 years this August. We were pledged to be married when we were 12. Not true. Actually, honey, do you want to share how we met?
Well, I had moved my senior year of high school, which was not an awesome experience. And my parents were trying to help me get involved with the school and just making friends right away. And so in my previous school, I had been involved in lots of activities, and one of them was drama. And so we got invited to a potluck for people who were, I think, freshmen or new to the school to learn about their drama program and see how we could get involved if we wanted to. So we were attending that, and that's when I first ran into you. Actually, you went up to my younger sister and tried to hit on her first, and she was in middle school, not even in high school.
Hashtag we are that church.
So she very directly pointed out that she was just in junior high and that you were gross and that you should talk to her sister. And so then you met me at that, and that's how it started, I guess.
And so when you first laid eyes on me from across the room, did I sweep you off your feet?
I wouldn't say that exactly.
What? Come on, wasn't it like love at first sight? And they're like little chirping birds like in the Disney movies. They're saying, "This is the one, this is the one." Was there any of that?
No, sorry.
Well, we dated off and on throughout our senior year of high school. We went to homecoming, and then I asked Amber to prom, our senior prom.
Did you?
Yeah. Yes, remember? I asked you to prom, and then I got my tux, and you got your dress.
Are you serious?
Yes.
We didn't go to prom together.
Oh, yeah, there's that part. We actually didn't end up going to prom. I asked her, though.
I don't remember that.
We both had blind dates to prom because we had a fight that week.
It's true.
So, for all the people tuning in, let's give them some practical advice now that you got the background. Married 21 years, 5 amazing kids. So we've got a little bit of skin in the game, some experience. when did our relationship mature past the silliness of high school drama?
Probably, probably about a year into college, I'd say. We didn't have cell phones, and so we were writing letters back and forth, and we had like a prepaid phone card to talk on the phone like once a week for 15 or 20 minutes. And we weren't local to one another, so we didn't see each other very often. And so it made us stop and think about, you know, what mattered and who mattered. And I think we both just grew individually because we weren't relying on another person to, fulfill us.
There's no codependency there.
Right, yeah. So we were both maturing on our own and figuring ourselves out and then growing in a relationship as well. We were married young, not at 12, but we were married young, and we were both very motivated and goal-oriented to succeed in life and continue with our education. And so we kind of just had no choice but to be grown up and mature. So we were both going to school full-time and working. You were working full-time. I was working part-time, sometimes 2 part-time jobs.
We didn't have a car.
We didn't have a car. So
no cell phone.
In our early marriage, we kind of were forced to really, we weren't local to our families, so we had to rely on one another and learn how to be there for each other.
Can you tell me, as you were in college in Kentucky, I was in college in Chicago, we were writing letters, we would talk on the phone once a week, long distance. When did you know? When did you know? Tell me the story of when John became the one.
Well, I think when I saw that you were committed to me and that you were willing to make sacrifices to continue our relationship, because long distance relationships, particularly in those days when there wasn't so much technology available, was a challenge, and so it took a lot of commitment. So that was huge. And then when we would get a chance to visit one another and we would have to separate again, it was super hard. And as time went on, I think it got harder, and it was just kind of like, well, I don't really want to have to be separated anymore. My life is better when you're there.
So I appreciate that answer, because what I'm kind of hearing is in Ephesians 5, when Paul talks about husbands and wives, he says husbands have to sacrifice themselves for their bride, just as Christ laid down his life for the church. And so one key to a thriving relationship is the man willing to give up his wants, his comforts, or is the man demanding and prideful? Would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Good. That's right, people. So that's in Ephesians 5. That part of a maturing, growing relationship is that guys have to grow up. You don't just live for yourself. In Genesis, it says the two become one. So when we look at Song of Solomon, we see Solomon, who's a knucklehead. We see the Shulamite woman, who is the hero of the story. And in the first part of the book, there's romance, then there's the wedding, and now they're in a relationship forever till death do us part. They're married. And in chapters 5 and 6, they have a fight. What advice would you give to couples who are navigating? How do you fight? Like, without going MMA style, what are healthy ways or emotionally mature ways for a husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend to fight? What have you discovered along the way?
When you're putting two people, sinful people together, so arguments are inevitable.
Wait, you're saying I'm a sinner?
Yeah. And so am I. And I think part of the design of marriage is to sanctify us, which is a churchy word to make us more like Jesus, because we realize just how sinful we are ourselves. And so then that causes us grief and makes us want to change, hopefully, for the better and become more like Jesus. And so marriage and parenting, big time, reveals that to us. But you know, you said at the beginning somewhere that, you know, when you get married, you become one. And so when you're arguing in your marriage, the main idea you have to keep in the back of your mind is there's no winner. So sometimes our pride, which would be an example of our sinful nature, really gets in the way, and we get focused on winning the argument, winning the argument. But if we're one flesh, is there really a winner? You know, instead of fighting for what I want or to prove that I'm right, instead I should have the goal of improving the relationship, and that's like the end result, and the goal of making you more like Jesus as well, in addition to myself. And so that's kind of the end goal. As far as actual argument, I think, you know, you need to stick to some ground rules. You can't bring in other arguments, or I mean, it's easy to do that, so try and recognize when you do, because I'm not saying I've never done that, because I'm sure I have, you know, but that's something that we need to try and be mindful of, and not bring in another issue that's not even related, that's just not even fair. It's not fair fighting, and there are rules to fair fighting. And so you know, sticking to the topic at hand as much as possible, and then getting resolution from that before you move on to something else. And then, I mean, it does say, you know, try not to, you know, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And sometimes you do need to kind of cool down before you can come together and calmly discuss an issue. And so I think that's fine. But the issue is, are you coming back and resolving that issue? So if you're never resolving it, then you're just having all this pent up, unresolved issues going on. And then that's when, you know, you do end up having a moment where the fight becomes all about the 100 things that you did before today that really have nothing to do with what you did today. And that's really not fair fighting. So resolving the issues as quickly as possible and working together as a team, I think, is crucial for the health of your marriage.
You know, this week at Team Herron, our memory verse as a family that we're learning together is 1 John 4:17.
19.
Darn it. Obviously, I didn't memorize it very well. 1 John 4:19, which is, we love because he first loved us. And so when there's fireworks in a relationship, are you fighting in your marriage or fighting for your marriage? And think about it, we offended God in our sin, and yet Jesus pursues us. The groom pursues the bride. And so men, don't run away from the challenge of resolving things with your wife. Run to her and love her like Jesus loved us, which is he fell on the sword. He was willing to take responsibility and die to himself. Men, are you willing to die to yourself? Okay, so let's get real practical, Amber. Okay, we're going to help some people out right now. The two biggies that couples fight about, or that can be relational hiccups, or that you have questions about, but nobody ever wants to talk about them. The two taboos are money and sex. And so I'm so glad that our 13-year-old son is running the camera right now and gets to listen to mom and dad talk about money and sex. What advice would you give to couples or to even single folks who are tuning in right now about money when it comes to a relationship?
I mean, you just really have to get on the same page. 100%. You have to be on the same page. It's not, my financial goals and then your financial goals. It's our financial goals. And I really do recommend, a program like Financial Peace University, because that does help you to get on the same page and to understand how to do that, and just to understand the different spending types, spenders and savers and all that kind of stuff, and recognize how that plays out in your relationship so that you can get on the same page, and figure out how to set up a budget that works for everyone. So when you have a spender, that person is allowed to, get some money that they have to spend, and they can feel like they have that, and just having that kind of set up. So getting on the same page.
Yeah, so here at Life Church, we offer Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University classes twice a year. Highly recommend it because you need to have a written budget. If you're a couple, you have to have a written budget, and over 70% of Americans don't. You need a shared bank account. You can't have like his account, her account, because you are one flesh. I'm getting ready to officiate a wedding next month for two 20-somethings out of Midland. They go to our Midland campus, and they are following Financial Peace University to the hilt. So like right now, they're doing the debt snowball. They're going to be debt-free in their 20s.
That's awesome.
And that's amazing. Imagine all the stress that dissolves. And my advice is, if you are in the dating phase or you're just a single person and you're waiting, which is fantastic, here's how you know that someone that you're going to date and possibly marry loves Jesus. Do they tithe? Because Jesus taught over and over and over again that your heart is connected to your checkbook. And so if you want to know if someone really is on fire for the things of God, just ask them, do you tithe to your local church? And if they don't, then that's an area to talk about, because that shows their spiritual barometer. That shows where they are at in their spiritual maturity. That's an easy barometer. Anything else you'd add to the money portion?
I just think you need to have open communication. I mean, it's possible there's relationships where it works this way, but I think primarily there's usually one person in the relationship that is the one that's more has a more dominant role in handling the actual finances, like the balancing of the checkbook, the actual paying of the bills, and all that stuff. So in our case, like you just pointed out, I'm the one who does that primarily, but that doesn't mean that I decide everything on my own and then just let you know. If there's ever a change in the monthly budget, whether there's a loss of income or an increase of income, that's something that we come back together and say, okay, this is the situation. Like, what are we going to cut out, or what are we going to put this surplus towards? What are we putting into savings? How are we planning for the future? Things like that. So I think if if both of you are trying to control that, it could cause some issues. There's probably a few relationships where that works, but I think that that's the minority.
Yeah. And one way to stay communicating about finances is we use the Every Dollar app. It's a free app from Dave Ramsey. You got a smartphone, and that way, anytime I want to know something or Amber wants to know something, boom. So we don't have to have silly fights over where did this go? Where did this go? We're on top of it.
Right.
That's great. So let me bring us to this final subject, our relational pro tips. Send the kids out of the room. And I'll segue talking about budgets. So when we were engaged, we got engaged in May of 1998. And then we got married in August of 1998. So 3-month engagement, short engagements, winner, chicken dinner. We were 20 years old. I got a verse. Proverbs 5 says to enjoy the wife of your youth. So I was just following scripture, baby. And we had a budget for the wedding. There's tons of things you can spend money on now with weddings. When I'm counseling couples, I always say get a good photographer, and then don't go hog wild. Like, you don't need an open bar. You don't need, fireworks and confetti. Save that money for your actual marriage. So let's talk about the wedding night. So we got married in the afternoon. We did a short thing. It was like a high schooler was DJing. We spent no money on the party, right?
That's true.
It was just whatever, because we're like, we're going to spend the money on a great
But we
honeymoon.
still had fun.
We went to Disney World for our honeymoon. Mickey Mouse, hey! But we went to this bed and breakfast. Do you remember this, honey? We got this nice suite for our wedding night at the bed and breakfast. And the little old lady was showing us our room. Do you want to share with them the conversation I had with the little old lady as we're arriving at the bed and breakfast?
Well, no, this was worse than that. It was, you had asked, okay, I think you had asked her about, like, how loud the house, because it was all like, it was a bed and breakfast, so it was like this nice mansion.
The floors creak,
It
and
was really pretty.
I'm kind of getting paranoid because there's other people staying in other rooms.
You were asking her, like, how loud the rooms were or whatever. And then the place we were staying at had a dessert at night for all the guests, but it was like community. Everybody came together. And so we were sitting at the table, we'd been married for like 3 hours or something like that. And
we go around the table, they're like, we've been married 20 years. We've been married.
Right. So first of all, it was automatically like awkward and like condescending, to be honest, to a certain degree. And that's the exact moment that lady decided it was appropriate to answer your question.
The question I asked earlier was, how loud are the walls thin? Is this a loud place? So we're sitting at this dinner with all these people. We've been married for 3 hours, and the little lady answers my question.
In front of everybody. It was very embarrassing.
She's like, I checked, and no one will be able to hear you through the walls. And nobody laughed. It was just awkward silence, and I died inside.
I think people did laugh.
Yeah, and then they wanted to take tours of each other's rooms, and Amber and I
we're like, that's weird.
Not gonna happen. That was our wedding night, right?
Yeah.
So no,
the moral of the story is maybe don't do a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, maybe don't do that for your wedding night. So, you answer as comfortable as much as you want to or don't want to. For me, the wedding night was awesome because I'm the guy, okay? And the guy, I mean, it's going to be great for the guy. And I even remember, this might get edited out.
I hope so.
But I remember, like, I was trying to be like all romantic and give you this speech, and I was like, I've saved myself for you, and you're like, just get it over with, John. And it was, for the guy, it was great. Do you have a perspective, or do you have nothing to add to this conversation? We're just trying to help people out. Because the media, you don't want to watch Netflix for your love advice, okay?
I mean, what do I want to say?
Everybody is leaning forward in their seats now.
Which makes it worse. Okay. It's not about, I guess, and maybe I think this is probably typical for a woman because it's all about the relationship. So it wasn't as much about, like, pleasure as much as just that connection and having that, when they say consummation, like, that's like the relationship is consummated. It's like that connection is made complete. And so that having that kind of closeness with someone is more, I guess, what it was about for me.
So my question then, honey, is, I mean, did it get better?
Oh my gosh.
Like, it gets better, right?
Oh my gosh, I really wish our kid wasn't here.
21 years into it.
He wishes he wasn't here either.
Come on now, we're doing some education. We're saving souls here.
Yeah, it takes time.
Communication.
Yeah, it is all about in all seriousness, it's all about communication.
So here's what you do. If you are married, you go to lifechurchmichigan.com/live, get the discussion guide, and it gives you different passages from Song of Solomon to read. Read it out loud, because what you see is the husband and wife are communicating, and they're complimenting one another and taking pleasure in each other's bodies and then touching their hearts. And I think that that's a great example. Turn off Netflix, get into the book, and that can help you gain permission, because people are like, can I do this? Can I not do this? Song of Solomon's your guide, right?
Yeah, I just say that it making it growing in that experience being a safe place and safe for both people is really what's going to ultimately lead to that being a more enjoyable experience. Because once you feel completely secure and safe and loved, that just really opens you up to experience the best
Mm-hmm.
and to feel the best.
And to communicate, share, what do you like, what do you not like. I mean,
Right.
you're in a safe relationship.
Right.
And 1 Corinthians 7, we talked about it last week. It's good for a husband and wife to come together. There's safety there. As my 13-year-old is turning red in the face, this is amazing. One last thing I want to touch on. What would you say, because we're not dumb, right? We know that the majority of people tuning in have already experienced sex outside of God's best. And there may be shame or regret or different feelings. How would you speak into that?
Um, well, you can always start again, but the reality is there's still maybe some consequences from past experiences, whether that's by choice or not by your choice of something that happened to you. And so that's where I think that safety comes in big time in your, marriage. And just it being safe enough that you can say, hey, like I'm feeling this way because of, what I've experienced in the past. Or just recognizing when that past is creeping into what's going on currently, and then being open about that and working through that. So I guess that's kind of what comes to mind.
So, to land the plane, what have we learned in our relationship pro tips today? We've learned that the Song of Solomon is a fantastic book to read through, that the hero of the story is not the man, it's actually the Shulamite woman. We've learned to fight for your marriage, not in your marriage. We've talked about the importance of communicating with finances and that virginity rocks. Listen, we want to continue to help you in your journey. Nobody here is perfect. Nobody here has it all figured out. We have a new online Zoom group for guys and a new online Zoom group for ladies. They just started this past week. You are welcome to jump into them. There's room at the table. Just go to lifechurchmichigan.com/groups and you can get information and register for those Zoom groups. Just get the Zoom app.
No.
Let me give you 3 resources also for all the single people, all the single ladies, all the single, and single guys. First, I highly recommend author Rebecca St. James. She's written a ton of books and devotionals for middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students. She has a song from about 10 years ago called Wait For Me that you should listen to on Spotify.
It's probably 20 years ago.
No. Anyhow, Rebecca St. James is a fantastic author. She was actually a guest on my podcast last year. You can find that. Second book that came out about 3 or 4 years ago is Swipe Right by Levi Lusko. That's great for single people, dating people, engaged people, even married people. But Swipe Right by Levi Lusko. And then a third book that just dropped this past week, Mike Todd's Relationship Goals. He's a pastor of a church in Oklahoma called Transformation Church, and highly recommend that brand new book. It's probably going to be on the New York Times bestseller list this week. So there are resources to learn. Listen, we are here for you. This is a no judgment zone. We're excited that you are tuned in, Life for Nation. So if we can serve you, encourage you, pray for you in any way, drop us a line at lifechurchmichigan.com. Next week is Mother's Day weekend, and we have a lot of fun surprises in store. So make sure that you tell your mama to tune in to our church online. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to surprise you with breakfast in bed or something.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So Mother's Day is coming up next weekend. Amber and I had a lot of fun. Okay, I had a lot of fun sharing with you. There's tons more content. We had to edit this message down for time. So there's bonus content on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, subscribe to Life Church Michigan. Click subscribe, that little bell, so that the angel gets its wings. And you can get the bonus content of our discussion of Song of Solomon, relationship pro tips. We'll have everything there on the web. Hey, in just a moment, we're going to move into a time of worship. And during this time of worship, you are invited to worship with the sound cranked up and through your gifts and generosity. It's because of your financial support that during this difficult season, we are able to bring you strong teaching on relationships and the small groups in the Zoom stuff. We got kids stuff Tuesday nights, 7:07 for teens. So thank you for your financial support. You can give at lifechurchgive.com, or you can mail in your gift to Life Church, 5200 Tittabawassee Road, Saginaw, Michigan, 48604. Every dollar is tax deductible, and you're not giving to the church, you're giving through the church. You're helping us literally touch the lives of thousands of people every Sunday here at Life Church. So thank you. Amber, thank you for being vulnerable and open. I just kind of threw all this at you, didn't prepare you. So thank you, honey. I will, wash your car when we get home.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. And you are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. 'Cause you are Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that
you're watching today and you're asking God in your own life to make a way, whatever you're faced with, maybe to see a miracle happen, I hang on to Hebrews 11:1 that says, faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. And it gives us assurance about things that we cannot see. And even though we can't predict the future, we can't predict what's about to happen, we know that because Jesus defeated the grave, there's nothing that God can't do. And the book of Matthew tells us that if we'll just have faith the size of a mustard seed, we can say to the mountains in our lives to be moved, and it will happen because nothing is impossible for God. So I want to take a moment right now, wherever you're at, to pray for you, to ask God to do what only He can do, to do the impossible in your own life. Would you join me? God, we come before you right now. We lift up our friends all over the world who are hurting. God, many who are sick right now with this horrible sickness. God, for doctors and nurses and EMTs and those on the front line, our first responders who are just giving of their lives sacrificially in this season, I pray you would protect them. God, for those who are immune compromised or elderly and they feel stuck at home, I pray that you would just give them peace and hope in this season. God, for our government officials all over the world, that you would give them wisdom as they make important decisions. For scientists, for other doctors who are working to find a cure, God, I pray that you too would give them wisdom to see what only you can do happen in our lives. God, we thank you so much for your goodness. We thank you so much for your son Jesus and the sacrifice that he made on the cross for us. God, I pray that today we would experience your joy, your hope, and your peace. Would you make a way in our own lives? For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working.
I just love worship, and I'm pretty sure I heard a few of you guys from your couch. Thank you so much for being a part of today's worship experience. I hope you have an amazing rest of your Sunday. We will see you next week. Can't wait to see what God is going to do through you.